The crystal spires of New Arcturus gleamed under the pale light of three suns, their alien architecture a constant reminder of humanity's subjugation. 50 years had passed since the Zilithian Empire had swept across Earth's colonies, their advanced technology crushing human resistance in mere weeks. Now, the once proud human settlements served as mining outposts and agricultural centers for their reptilian overlords. Guard Captain Marcus Chen stood at attention in the Grand Throne Chamber, his weathered face betraying nothing of the storm brewing within. The massive hall stretched before him, its walls adorned with holographic displays showing the Empire's vast territorial holdings. At its center, upon a throne carved from a single piece of living crystal, sat Queen Camilla Zethara, the Zilithian regent who had ruled the human sectors for the past decade. Her scales shimmered with an iridescent purple hue, and her serpentine neck stretched gracefully as she reviewed reports on her crystalline tablet. The queen's reputation for cruelty was legendary among the human colonies. Under her rule, work quotas had doubled, rations had been cut, and any hint of rebellion was met with swift, brutal punishment. "The humans grow restless in Sector 7, reported Commander Israk, his forked tongue flicking nervously. "Production has fallen by 12% this quarter." Queen Camilla's amber eyes narrowed. "Then they need a reminder of their place. Execute every 10th worker. Display their bodies in the main plaza." Marcus felt his jaw clench involuntarily. Sector 7 housed nearly 10,000 humans, including many families with young children. The Queen's casual order would mean the deaths of 1,000 innocent people. But he remained silent, as he had trained himself to do for years. The truth was, Marcus Chen was not just any guard captain. Beneath his loyal exterior, he served as the primary coordinator for the human resistance movement known as the Phoenix Coalition. For 3 years, he had carefully built a network of sympathizers throughout the Zilithian military structure, recruiting humans and even some disillusioned Zilithian soldiers who had grown tired of the Empire's oppressive policies. The Phoenix Coalition had been planning something unprecedented, a coordinated uprising across all human colonies simultaneously. They had spent months acquiring weapons, hacking communication systems, and identifying key strategic targets. The plan was ambitious: capture the Queen during a public ceremony and broadcast their demands across the entire sector. But Queen Camilla's latest order forced Marcus to accelerate their timeline. He couldn't stand by while innocent humans died for failing to meet impossible quotas. "Your Majesty," Marcus said, stepping forward with calculated precision. "Perhaps a public address would be more effective than executions. The humans respond better to motivation than fear." The Queen's head snapped toward him, her vertical pupils dilating with interest. "Curious advice from a human guard. Tell me, Captain Chen, what makes you think you understand governance better than your Queen?" The throne room fell silent. Even the low hum of the environmental systems seemed to pause as every eye turned toward Marcus. He had walked into dangerous territory, but this was exactly the opportunity the resistance had been waiting for. "I've served loyally for 8 years, Your Majesty," Marcus replied carefully. "I've seen how humans work best. They need hope, not just punishment." Queen Camilla rose from her throne, her 7-foot frame towering over the assembled court. She descended the crystal steps with predatory grace, her clawed feet clicking against the polished surface. "Hope?" she repeated, her voice carrying a mixture of amusement and disdain. "Humans are livestock, Captain. They exist to serve the Empire. Hope is a luxury they cannot afford." As she spoke, Marcus noticed the small group of human servants and guards stationed around the chamber. Each one was a member of the Phoenix Coalition, positioned and ready for the signal they had rehearsed countless times. His hand moved imperceptibly to the small device clipped to his belt, a signal transmitter that would activate resistance cells across the entire planetary system. The Empire's strength comes from unity, the Queen continued, circling Marcus like a predator sizing up its prey. When humans forget their place, chaos follows. Order must be maintained. Marcus nodded respectfully, but his mind was calculating distances, timing, and probabilities. In approximately 30 minutes, the Queen would deliver her weekly broadcast to the colonies. The Phoenix Coalition had planned to interrupt that transmission with their own message, but recent intelligence suggested the Zilithian military was planning a major offensive against suspected resistance hideouts. The time for subtle maneuvering had passed. Marcus knew that within the next few minutes, he would have to make a choice that would change the course of human history in this sector forever. The resistance was ready, weapons were in place, and communication networks had been quietly compromised over months of careful planning. Queen Camilla stopped directly in front of him, her alien features studying his human face with scientific curiosity. "You intrigue me, Captain Chen. Most humans cower when I speak of executions. Yet you stand here offering strategic advice. Why?" Marcus met her gaze steadily, knowing that his next words would either doom humanity to another generation of slavery or ignite the spark of freedom that had been building for decades. Marcus felt the weight of 50 years of oppression pressing down on his shoulders as Queen Camilla awaited his response. Around the throne room, the other Zilithian officials watched with varying degrees of interest and suspicion. The moment stretched like a taut wire, ready to snap. "Because, Your Majesty," Marcus said quietly, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was about to do, "sometimes even livestock remembers how to bite back." Before the Queen could process his words, Marcus's hand found the transmitter at his belt. The small device activated with a barely audible chime, sending coded signals across subspace frequencies to every Phoenix Coalition cell within 100 light-years. The reaction was immediate and devastating. The lights in the throne room flickered as the palace's main power grid was compromised. Emergency lighting bathed the chamber in an eerie red glow. Alarms began wailing throughout the complex as coordinated strikes hit key infrastructure points across the planet. "Seize him!" Queen Camilla shrieked, but her order came too late. The human guards and servants who had been standing at attention around the room suddenly moved with military precision. Captain Liu, posing as a maintenance worker, produced a plasma rifle from her toolkit. Sergeant Rodriguez, who had been serving ceremonial wine, drew twin pistols from beneath his serving tray. Within seconds, every human in the throne room was armed and positioned. The Zilithian guards reached for their weapons, but the humans had trained for this moment. Years of studying their captors' movements, learning their tactical preferences, and exploiting their overconfidence paid off in a symphony of coordinated action. "Stand down, or we start shooting," Marcus commanded, his own sidearm now pointed directly at Queen Camilla's chest. Commander Israk hissed angrily and lunged toward the nearest human soldier, but Sergeant Rodriguez's plasma bolt caught him center mass. The Zilithian commander crumpled to the crystal floor, his scales still smoldering. "You dare!" Queen Camilla's voice rose to an inhuman shriek. "I am your queen! I own every human in this sector! This is treason of the highest order!" Marcus stepped closer, his weapon never wavering. Around the throne room, the remaining Zilithian officials raised their hands in surrender as human resistance fighters kept them covered. The palace's communication systems crackled to life as Phoenix Coalition cells across the planet reported successful captures of key facilities. "Your Majesty," Marcus said, his voice carrying the accumulated rage of 5 decades. "You seem to misunderstand something fundamental about human nature." The Queen's amber eyes blazed with fury and disbelief. "You are nothing! Primitives! You barely had interstellar travel when we found you." "That's true," Marcus admitted. But you made one crucial mistake in all your years of ruling us. Through the throne room's massive windows, explosions lit up the night sky as human resistance fighters struck military installations across the capital city. The coordinated assault was working exactly as planned. Decades of careful intelligence gathering had identified every critical target, and months of preparation had positioned the right people in the right places. You treated us like animals, Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger with each word. You thought that because you conquered us quickly, we would stay conquered. You never bothered to learn who we really are. Queen Camilla backed toward her throne, her tail lashing frantically. This rebellion will fail. The Imperial fleet will arrive within days. You cannot hope to stand against the full might of the Zilithian Empire. Captain Liu spoke up from her position near the main entrance. Actually, Your Majesty, you might want to check your long-range communications. The Queen's clawed hand reached for the control panel built into her throne's armrest. Her expression shifted from rage to confusion as she accessed the palace's sensor networks. The readings showed massive disruptions in subspace communication throughout the sector. Impossible, she whispered. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. 3 years ago, we intercepted your military codes. Turns out your empire's communication system has some interesting vulnerabilities when you know where to look. The truth was even more impressive than he was revealing. The Phoenix Coalition had discovered that the Zilithian Empire's greatest strength was also its greatest weakness. Their reliance on centralized command and control made them vulnerable to coordinated sabotage. Human engineers working in secret aboard Zilithian ships and installations had spent months installing undetectable modifications to communication relays throughout the sector. When Marcus activated his transmitter, it hadn't just signaled the beginning of the uprising, it had triggered a cascade failure in the Empire's local command network, leaving their forces blind, deaf, and unable to coordinate a response. You see, Your Majesty, Marcus explained as reports continued flooding in from resistant cells across the planet. Humans have this annoying habit. When you push us down, we don't just lie there. We study you, we learn your weaknesses, we adapt, and we never, ever forget. The throne room's main doors burst open as more human resistance fighters poured in, their faces grim with determination. These were miners, farmers, factory workers, and teachers who had spent decades under Zilithian rule. They carried improvised weapons alongside stolen military hardware, but their expressions showed the same steely resolve that Marcus had seen in the eyes of ancient human warriors. The spaceport is secured, reported one of the newcomers. All Zilithian vessels are under our control. The garrison commander surrendered after we demonstrated our new toys. Queen Camilla's proud bearing finally cracked. What new toys? She demanded. Marcus gestured toward the windows where the explosions had taken on a different character. Instead of random destruction, they formed precise patterns across the city's skyline. Turns out, humans are pretty good at reverse engineering alien technology when we put our minds to it. The Queen's scales had lost their lustrous sheen, turning a dull gray color that Marcus had learned indicated extreme stress in Zilithians. She slumped onto her throne, finally understanding the scope of what was happening. This isn't just a local uprising, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. No, Your Majesty, Marcus confirmed. This is humanity remembering how to fight. As if summoned by his words, the throne room's communication systems activated. Screens around the chamber displayed images from across the human colonies, space stations in open rebellion, mining planets declaring independence, and agricultural worlds driving out their Zilithian overseers. The age of human subjugation was ending, and Queen Camilla was witnessing its final moments from the very throne where she had once wielded absolute power. The dawn of a new day brought with it the dawn of a new era. Marcus stood on the palace's observation deck, watching as the last Zilithian transport ships departed from New Arcturus under human escort. Across the city below, crowds of humans emerged from their residential districts for the first time in decades, without fear of arbitrary punishment or sudden execution. Queen Camilla sat in what had once been her private chambers, now converted into a holding cell. The crystal walls that had once showcased her power now served as transparent barriers, allowing her to watch the systematic dismantling of her empire's local infrastructure. She had aged visibly in the 3 days since the uprising began, her scales dulling further with each report of another Zilithian defeat. "The Proxima colonies have declared independence," reported Captain Liu as she joined Marcus on the observation deck. "The Zilithian garrison there surrendered without a fight once they realized their communication network was down." Marcus nodded, reviewing the tactical displays on his portable command unit. The scope of the Phoenix Coalition's success was staggering even to him. In 72 hours, humanity had liberated 43 worlds, captured 17 major space stations, and forced the withdrawal of Zilithian forces from an entire sector of space. "Any word from the core empire?" he asked. "Radio silence," Liu replied. "Our intelligence suggests they're dealing with uprisings in at least 6 other sectors. Apparently, we weren't the only species getting tired of Zilithian hospitality." The truth was becoming clear as reports filtered in from across known space. The Zilithian Empire's rapid expansion had created the seeds of its own destruction. By ruling through fear and exploitation, they had made enemies of every species they encountered. The human uprising had served as a catalyst, inspiring similar rebellions among dozens of other oppressed civilizations. Marcus made his way back to the former queen's chambers. Camilla looked up as he entered, her amber eyes reflecting a mixture of hatred and grudging respect. "Come to gloat?" she asked, her voice lacking its former imperial authority. "Actually, I came to make you an offer," Marcus said, pulling up a chair to sit across from her. The former queen's head tilted with curiosity. "An offer? You're hardly in a position to negotiate, human. Your little rebellion may have succeeded locally, but the core empire will never allow this to stand." Marcus activated a holographic display showing the current military situation across known space. Red indicators marked Zilithian-controlled systems, while blue showed areas under rebellion or newly independent. The amount of blue was staggering. "Your empire is collapsing," he said matter-of-factly. 17 sectors in open rebellion, communication networks compromised across half your territory, and your military spread too thin to respond effectively. We estimate you've lost control of approximately 40% of your holdings in the past week. Camilla stared at the display, her reptilian features unreadable. Impossible. "The Empire has stood for over 2,000 years. And it might have stood for 2,000 more if you hadn't made one fundamental error," Marcus replied. "You assumed that conquest was the same as rule." He manipulated the holographic display to show detailed readouts from the liberated worlds. "Every species you conquered had something valuable to offer. The Christians were master engineers. The Vorlak understood biological systems better than anyone in known space. The Terrans, humans, we're apparently pretty good at organizing things." "What's your point?" Camilla demanded. Marcus leaned forward, his expression serious. "My point is that you had the opportunity to build the greatest cooperative civilization in galactic history. Instead, you chose slavery and exploitation. Now you're paying the price." The former queen's laugh was bitter. "And what? You think your ragtag collection of rebels can do better?" "Actually, we're already proving it," Marcus said. He gestured toward the window, where construction crews were working to repair damage from the uprising. Those crews include humans, Christians, and even some Zilithians who decided they preferred freedom to empire. It was true. In the days following the liberation, something remarkable had happened. Former slaves and their former masters were working together to build something new. The cooperative skills that humans had developed during their resistance efforts were being applied to reconstruction and planning. The Galactic Cooperative Council will hold its first session next month, Marcus continued. Representatives from every liberated world, including Earth, will work together to establish new trade relationships, defense agreements, and technological exchanges. Camilla's scales shifted to a deep purple color. You're naive if you think such cooperation will last. Different species have different interests. Without a strong central authority, you'll fragment into warring factions within a generation. Maybe, Marcus admitted, but we'll do it as free beings making our own choices, and if we fail, we'll fail as equals, not as slaves. A soft chime indicated an incoming communication. Marcus activated his personal communicator to find Admiral Sarah Chen, his younger sister and commander of the newly formed Human Space Navy, appearing as a hologram. Marcus, we just received confirmation from the Antares system. The Zilithian Empire has officially recognized the independence of all rebelling sectors. They're requesting a ceasefire and formal negotiations. Marcus felt a moment of satisfaction, but also sadness. So many lives had been lost over the decades of oppression. Freedom had come at a tremendous cost. Terms, he asked. Complete withdrawal of Imperial forces from liberated systems, recognition of the Galactic Cooperative Council as a legitimate governing body, and reparations for damages caused during the occupation years. Camilla's head snapped up. Reparations? The Empire will never agree to that. Admiral Chen's holographic image smiled grimly. They already have. It seems the rebellion in the Andromedan sectors was particularly effective. The Empire's core systems are facing serious internal pressure. After the communication ended, Marcus turned back to Camilla. Which brings me to my offer. You have two choices. You can stand trial for war crimes, which will likely result in life imprisonment, or you can help us establish transitional governments in former Zilithian territories. You want me to betray my own people? I want you to help heal the wounds your empire created, Marcus corrected. You understand Zilithian culture and politics better than anyone. Your knowledge could save lives and prevent unnecessary conflicts during the transition. Camilla was quiet for several minutes, staring out at the city where humans and aliens were working side by side to build something new. When she finally spoke, her voice was thoughtful. You really believe this cooperative government will work? Marcus stood and moved toward the door. I believe that free beings working together can accomplish things that no empire ever could. We've already proven it. As he prepared to leave, Camilla called out one final question. What made you think you could win against an empire that had conquered half the galaxy? Marcus paused at the threshold, considering his answer. Because, Your Majesty, you forgot something important about humans. We've spent our entire history fighting against impossible odds and finding ways to win anyway. It's what we do. Outside, the three suns of New Arcturus were setting, painting the sky in brilliant colors that no human had been free to enjoy for 50 years. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as the Galactic Cooperative Council began the complex work of building a government based on cooperation rather than domination. But tonight, for the first time in decades, humans across the galaxy would sleep as free beings, masters of their own destiny once again.